The future belongs to those who learn more skills and combine them in creative ways. That's Robert Greene.
And, it really fits when we talk about international relations. It's often about the big powers, the grand narratives, but sometimes the real action, the key insights, they come from these unexpected links, these connections quietly reshaping the map.
That's right.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into one such relationship, the evolving bond between India and Armenia. And this isn't just, diplomatic handshakes. We're talking geopolitics, trade routes, defense.
They're quite layered.
Exactly. And how this old friendship is becoming a really crucial counterweight in a pretty volatile region. So whether you're prepping for the UPSC, trying to get your head around current affairs, or you're just curious about global power shifts, this deep dive, based on a really insightful first post article, should give you some solid takeaways. Yeah, what's really fascinating here is how these, seemingly distant nations find their interests suddenly aligning. And that alignment creates new pathways, it reshapes regional balances. So today, we'll pull out the core insights from that article, how India and Armenia are strengthening ties, and, importantly, what that means for Central and West Asia.
Absolutely. Our mission today: unpack why Armenia sees India as this pivotal link, how it's playing out in, the real world, and the bigger picture implications for India's strategic footprint beyond its immediate neighborhood. So get ready, because it gets really interesting.
It does.
Okay, let's set the strategic stage first.
Yeah.
The first post article highlights a pretty critical shift. China's actively boosting its presence in the Caucasus.
Right.
And Armenia, it's looking towards India as a potential counterbalance.
Exactly. And if you connect the dots, Armenian strategic experts told First Post that New Delhi could be pivotal, really pivotal, in developing something called the Black Sea Corridor. Now, this corridor aims to link India through Iran to Armenia, Georgia, and then into Central Asia.
So why this region? Why now?
Well, the article points out the Caucasus has gained significant attention recently. China's been investing heavily, particularly in Azerbaijan and Georgia, Belt and Road Initiative, that sort of thing.
Okay, so there's an opportunity here for India to use its strong, decades-old ties with Armenia.
Carve out its own space.
And here's a statistic that really jumped out at me from the article. In 2022, India actually overtook Russia as Armenia's biggest arms supplier.
That's a huge shift. Really significant.
It really is. Now, let's talk about how this plays out in practice. The article gives a powerful example: Operation Sindhu.
Ah, yes, the evacuation.
Exactly. India's effort to get its citizens out of Iran and Israel during that 12-day conflict between them.
And that evacuation was incredibly complex, wasn't it?
Extremely. Why was that?
Well, you had Iran closing its airspace because of Israeli strikes.
Yeah.
Then Pakistan, continuing its anti-India stance, also closed its airspace. That was after the Pahalgam terror attack and India's response.
Yeah.
Operation Sindoor, the strikes on terror camps in Pakistan.
Right, Operation Sindoor.
So India's options were narrowing fast. The Iran-Pakistan land border in Balochistan, shut. Iran's borders with Turkey and Azerbaijan, also shut. And remember, Turkey and Azerbaijan openly backed Pakistan during Operation Sindoor.
Wow. So very few options left.
Very few. Even Afghanistan, despite close ties, the official relations with the Taliban government were a hurdle. So that basically left Turkmenistan, Iraq, and Armenia as potential land ribs out of Iran.
Okay.
But given the security risks on Iran's borders with Turkmenistan and Iraq, well, the 44-kilometer Iran-Armenia border became the most viable, the safest bet for the Indian evacuees.
And Armenia facilitated this.
They did. Anne Vard-Chalikian, a research fellow at APR Armenia, she called it a great demonstration of India-Armenia relations in action. She emphasized, look, these relations have been good for centuries, and crucially, their national strategic interests align.
That's a powerful statement, and it leads perfectly into the next point: Armenia as a counterweight. Not just a transit point, but specifically countering that Pakistan-Azerbaijan-Turkey axis.
Yes, that emerging bloc. It's fascinating because Armenia was actually one of the very first countries to openly support India's Operation Sindoor. Remember, during the India-Pakistan military confrontation that followed, Turkey and Azerbaijan immediately sided with Pakistan.
Right.
But Chalikian explained Armenia's position very clearly. She said India was attacked, and Armenia sees and understands India's fight against terrorism. Plus, she pointed out, Pakistan doesn't even recognize Armenia as a state. That's a fundamental issue.
A major sticking point, yeah.
And this isn't new. Armenia has historically backed India's position on Kashmir, both in government statements and international forums. Leonid Nersisian, another senior research fellow at APRI Armenia, added more context. He noted Pakistan's ties with Azerbaijan get more strategic every year. Pakistan is even becoming a quite large armament supplier to Azerbaijan, selling them JF-17 fighters, for example.
JF-17s, okay. So India and Armenia find themselves naturally aligned against this backdrop.
Precisely. Their interests converge.
Yeah. And India seems to be actively maneuvering to counter this three-brother alliance. Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Turkey. That alliance has been growing militarily too, right? Turkey backing Pakistan on Kashmir, criticizing India over Article 370.
Definitely. It's a strategic alignment India has to watch.
So India is looking towards the Caucasus. The article mentions Prime Minister Modi's visit to Cyprus as an example of this broader strategy.
Yes, and Eurasian specifically highlighted the potential for a new alliance. India, Cyprus, Greece, and Armenia. He pointed out Greece was the first NATO country to support Armenia defensively, way back in the 90s.
Interesting historical tie.
It is.
Yeah.
And he noted it's very good to see that partners of India in Europe and partners of Armenia in Europe are the same countries. Cyprus is already a close partner, and there's an existing defense cooperation deal between Cyprus, Greece, and Armenia.
A trilateral agreement.
Exactly. And the article suggests it would be very interesting to look into how India can be added to this equation.
So a potential quadrilateral security arrangement?
That seems to be the suggestion, yes. Deepening security ties.
Okay, let's circle back to the defense relationship, specifically India becoming Armenia's top arms supplier. Was that purely because of the Russia-Ukraine war disrupting Russian supplies?
Eurasian clarified that point. He said, yes, the war triggered this process, made it much faster and dramatic. Russia couldn't deliver post-2020 like before. But, and this is key, the talks for Indian weapons actually started back in 2018. The first contract was signed in 2019.
Ah, so it predates the full-scale war in Ukraine.
It does. India has become a very important partner now alongside France and local Armenian companies.
But Shalikian added some nuance there, didn't she?
She did. She stressed India hasn't replaced Russia. Russia formally still guarantees Armenia's security. That's a commitment India hasn't made.
Right, that's a big difference.
Huge. But she did say it would be good for Armenia if India were more involved in the region beyond just, buying and selling arms. She suggested things like more joint military exercises.
Building interoperability, maybe.
Precisely. And Eurasian went even further. He flat out said it's time for a strategic partnership agreement.
A formal agreement. Okay, so what kind of impact are these Indian arms actually having on Armenia's defense capabilities?
Well, according to Eurasian, they're significantly bolstering Armenia's defense infrastructure. Armenia lost a lot in the 2020 war, and much of its equipment was old Soviet-era stuff.
Right, outdated systems.
Exactly. So procurements from India, based on Indian sources cited in the article, include lots of artillery systems and air defense. These are the areas with the biggest losses. And Armenia is making a strategic shift to the 155mm NATO artillery caliber, which India produces. That's significant for future compatibility.
NATO standard, yeah.
Eurasian said something quite striking. Almost everything that India can produce at the moment is on Armenia's shopping list.
Wow, that's quite a statement. Any specific systems mentioned?
Yes, the Akash-1S air defense system. Apparently it proved effective during a standoff with Pakistan, taking down Turkish-made drones that Azerbaijan also operates. And Armenia appreciates that capability, naturally.
Understandably so. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond defense, there's the economic and connectivity angle. China's a big player in Central Asia and the Caucasus with its Belt and Road Initiative. How does that affect this India-Armenia picture?
Chalikin pointed out that China has invested heavily in Azerbaijan and Georgia, especially in BRI-related infrastructure. But here's the key part. Armenia has been largely left out of the BRI projects. China just hasn't invested as much there.
Interesting. So China's focused elsewhere in the region.
Seems so.
Uh-huh.
And Chalikian notes this creates an opening. It's a region where India and China, to some extent, can compete on this infrastructure project front, compete over which country will have a greater influence in the region in terms of connectivity projects, it's a subtle competition.
A geopolitical chess game playing out through infrastructure. So what's India's answer, especially given Armenia seems receptive?
Well, the North-South Transport Corridor is one part of it, but the article really emphasizes the Black Sea Corridor as another vital option, connecting India, Iran, Armenia. Its development is seen as essential for India to emerge as a counterbalance in the region.
A counterbalance to China's influence?
To some extent, yes, but also just providing alternative routes for India itself. India needs reliable ways to connect to Europe, especially after the Ukraine war disrupted traditional shipping.
Right. And diversification of routes is key.
Absolutely. So one potential route is India, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, across the Black Sea and into Europe.
Sounds ambitious. Are there hurdles?
Definitely. It's a very major project, as the article says. And the big one is sanctions against Iran.
Ah, yes. That complicates things.
It does, but apparently there's ongoing collaboration between India, Armenia, and Iran at the foreign ministry level to try and navigate these issues. And what's really unique and strategically vital for India is that Armenia offers a land route to Europe that bypasses both Turkey and Azerbaijan.
That is crucial. Almost all other options go through one or both of them.
Exactly. Armenia provides that unique alternative pathway.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the key takeaway here for someone listening? Maybe a UPSC aspirant focusing on current affairs, or just someone wanting to understand global shifts? This deep dive really shows that the India-Armenia relationship is, well, much more strategic than it might first appear.
Much more.
It covers defense, these vital economic corridors, countering regional blocs, and it speaks volumes about India's expanding role. It's just a prime example, isn't it, of how geopolitical interests can converge in really unexpected ways, creating new alliances and genuinely reshaping regions like the Caucasus.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with a pretty significant question to think about. As India keeps diversifying its partnerships, seeking these alternative connections, how might these new alliances, especially with countries like Armenia, fundamentally change the traditional power dynamics in Central and West Asia? And what are the long-term implications? For regional stability, sure, but also for India's own strategic autonomy. That's something to really mull over.
A very important question indeed. We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable insights, maybe some aha moments, and a clearer picture of this crucial relationship. If you found this useful, perhaps for your exam prep or just general knowledge, please do give this deep dive a like and subscribe to our channel. We'll be doing more deep dives into critical topics like this one. Also, leave a comment below any questions you still have or other topics you'd like us to tackle. Your feedback really helps us shape these discussions for you.